Our first caller has called in. This is their third week calling in. They waited on the lines for 2 weeks in a row. Let's talk to Tom in Georgia. Tom, you're live with Eric and V.
Thanks for having me on the show. It's been fun because I live in rural Georgia where the internet is not a streaming thing out here. So I've been able to listen to the whole show on hold instead of catching YouTube clips. So I may just call in next week and just tell them to keep me on hold. It's easier to listen to the show.
Well, I like it.
I appreciate that you get that out of it because I feel terrible. We're sorry about that, man. But we see that in the notes you want to talk about presuppositionalism. What is it that you wanted to talk about or ask about or engage with us on?
Yeah, I think the first thing is, for some reason, you attract these presuppers like moth to a flame.
A little bit.
I've been fascinated by that world because when I became an atheist many years ago, I didn't know anything about it, and it was through watching your show that I was like, whoa, there's a whole other wormhole out there of this really interesting thought process. And my background is in special education.
Oh, yeah?
And,
hold on, sorry. What grade level?
So I taught pre-K and kindergarten while I was studying, and then I've taught as an assistant in middle and high school, and that was for several years after I was actually diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder at the age of 30. So there's that.
Hey, well, rock on. I'm sorry, my mom taught pre-K special ed. In California, we called them SH classes. In Texas, they are life skills classes. And I've grew up in that environment, and actually I worked as an IA for a long time. So rock on, man. Sorry, go ahead.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's why I thought, well, it's kind of boring to hear two people agree with each other on a show. So I always thought, well, because I'm already an atheist. Well, it was through watching your show I've seen these presuppositionalists call in, and I'm not calling in to say if you're a presuppositionalist you have some kind of mental disorder.
No, that would be irresponsible.
Right. I'm not even going anywhere near that.
Sure.
But I think there's a striking correlation between some of the known behaviors of people who have symptoms of, say, narcissism, sociopathy, or antisocial personality disorder, and either the argument itself or the way it's argued by presuppers who, for example, call your show.
How so?
Well, I think it's an apt analogy to call what they're working with a script. But the way I see it is more kind of like you're a marble in their little mind maze that they've constructed for you, and you're not getting out of that. And that is symptomatic of people with narcissism and sociopathy, where it's a set of rules, and you're already playing by a set of rules that's stacked against you. That's kind of the suppositional argument bears out. And then you add the attitude and the idea that if you argue out of the maze, then the only thing outside of that maze is deflection, projection, and ad hominem attacks. So it's symptomatic of somebody with these, kind of mental disorders.
Well, I think that I got to jump in here because while it can be frustrating debating precepts, this might just be an issue of a small pool of people that are just too small, to get maybe an accurate reading on. Because I've had conversations with presups who were actually respectful, kind, dead wrong, but actually, if you go to my personal channel, Eric D. Murphy, I did a number of things. One of them was a review series on the calls, for the various call-in shows and kind of going over what the good, the bad, and the ugly. But I also did just kind of sit down, long-form discussions with apologists. And I had a long-form discussion with a presup that I think would be really good if you wanted to check out. I think that the ones who call in or who have called in most have kind of belonged to a very specific niche of kind of intellectual dark web type people. And
right, which is a fascinating culture. Like I probably waded in those waters for too long because once I'm fascinated by something, I do a deep dive, and I've spent a lot of time listening to how they argue themselves and do their little, post wrap up where they make fun of your hair and it's really ridiculous. Like, so yeah, I guess I am talking about a niche within a niche, but I was kind of fascinated by how the behaviors seem to match, and wondering if you thought the argument itself attracts those types of people, or the argument, the way it's presented, makes people appear to have these symptoms.
Yeah, honestly, Tom, I think you hit the nail on the head with that one. I've had this conversation, not about Presups specifically, but about different groups where people are like, oh, they all have this mental disorder, right? It's like, well, let's not make that assumption. But I do think that we gravitate towards arguments that make sense in our brains, the way our brains are structured and the way that we see the world. And I think that there are certain subgroups that also motivate certain behaviors as good or desirable. And so I think that rather than say that this group as a whole might be part of that like narcissistic personality disorder pool, rather I can imagine a lot of people who happen to be narcissists or whatever, gravitating towards a group that says, hey, your worldview, how you view everything else, you can actually use that to prove X thing. And if you're also kind of obnoxious about it, that's actually a good thing. And we're going to appreciate that about you. So I think it's more of I don't think the overlap is 100%. I don't think that Venn diagram is a circle by any means, but I wouldn't be surprised if certain people gravitate towards certain arenas just because they seem to fit in better there. So I don't know.
I think that... Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, the argument and the behavior seem to fit hand in glove, where the argument is already, I'm right and you're wrong, and there's nothing that's going to change that. And the behavior fits that perfectly, where we're not starting out from a place where we want to exchange information. We're starting out where I'm going to correct you.
So that, I think, would be it. And I would separate that from the Presup argument itself, though. This idea of, someone trying to gaslight and push their way into a thing. You said it this way. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. I'm trying to lead the conversation or deflect by throwing out insults or trying to goad you into something else instead of finishing the conversation. I think those are really, really toxic things. But I was going to school to become a school psychologist. I never finished that, so I am not able to diagnose. But it's an interesting thought, and I don't know. I just wanted to, I appreciate that you've called in 3 weeks in a row, and thanks.
Yeah, I just wanted to explore that with you guys because, again, you attract these guys like magnets. How they work. But, I'm a big fan of the show. You guys have been fundamental in helping me form my own arguments and figure out what I believe. And I seriously appreciate you guys and the work that you do. And last week was the wrong time to talk about this because the second you opened the show, it was like, oh, my subject is nowhere near as relevant as what's going on right now. So, but I really appreciate you guys.
I appreciate you back, man.
Tom. Appreciate
Take care of yourself.
And nobody, the biggest bummer of last week's show, nobody told you Happy Sweet 16. So, Happy Sweet
Yeah,
well,
our show had a Sweet 16. Yeah. All right. Take care, man.
All right. Later, guys.
Bye.
Yeah. Our show is 17 episodes old.
We're like those really obnoxious parents who use months as birthday, this baby is 17 months old. You mean a year and a half? No, 17 months.
17 weeks. 17 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I absolutely love doing this. I love the show, and I don't care if it's obnoxious. I'm super excited about it. All right. Who should we take next?
I know that Judy called in last week with a story, and I do want to maybe not spend too long on it because we don't necessarily want to just tell stories. We do want to have that back and forth, but I think that it's worth kind of bringing up.
That's true. Before we do take them then, for those who are watching, if you want to talk, if you're a believer, now's the time. For those of you who are watching, get those feelers out because we've got people who want to talk and share their stories, but we want to talk to more people who don't agree with us or who, want to talk about what they believe and why. And we would love to talk to you. So if you're that person or you are somewhere in the house with that person, let them know to give us a call, 585-526-8774 or tiny.cc/call SG, capital S, capital G.
Except for you, Atangelo. I see you in the chat. And we're blocking you again. Dude, he has been obsessed with me.
Yes, he's been like jumping into your streams.
With like little bots and everything.
Yeah, multiple accounts.
He's procreated. He has a bunch of little bots now. It's great.